So it's about to go live right now.
Bring me my other phone.
Link.
Can you give it to me? I'm in the middle of interview.
All right. It should be, we in YouTube right now. I'm putting the link
I'm in the middle of interview.
in the chat as of now. It's there. You should have it.
Did you try to put your phone on the thing?
What's up, people? Hotep Jesus. I done brought some guests with me today. So it's about to get lit. It's about to get super lit. Most of y'all understand what's happening, what's about to happen. We're talking about the Ahmaud Arbery incident that happened this week. My bad. We're talking about the Ahmaud Arbery incident that happened this week. There was actually several incidents that happened this week. We know Sean Reed happened this week. He was killed by police officers. And there seems to be a bit of a splinter between some of the opinions or takes, especially as concerns the Black conservative crowd. We have some people who feel as though we are being liberals or leftists or snowflakes or so on and so forth. And there's plenty of different types of takes out there. And then other people who feel as though, no, like we're actually standing up for our people. Like there's nothing wrong with having this discussion. So that's what this discussion is today and so much more. We got Maj here. We have Miss Angeles King here, Miss Antonia Okafor, Sharice. It's a lit crowd here. Jonathan Thrower, Charles Blank. Crowd here.
Call me Shakim, brother.
Shakim.
Yes,
go ahead in the thing and change and set your name. You can rename it if you can. If not, maybe I can rename it for you.
Okay.
Somebody,
cool. Ain't no big deal,
type his name in the chat so I can copy and paste it, and I'll rename it so his thing will pop up on the screen, right? But yeah, let's hop into this discussion. Miss Antonia Okafor is going to be taking over as de facto host tonight.
Yeah.
Antonia Okafor, how you feeling tonight, sister?
I'm good. I'm glad that everyone could show up. I didn't think this was going to actually happen. So I'm really excited that we're going to have this conversation. First of all, are we going to do a live chat like where people can
That's
go
happening
on the chat?
right now on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
That link I put in the chat. I think I put it. Yep. It's the first one. Yep.
Okay. All right. Cool.
Yeah. So it's happening right now on YouTube. So everybody can go look at that.
Okay. Cool.
So yeah. So this Antonia Okafor, I checked my phone today, and I was like, "What the hell is going on?" I was like, well, "I'm in a group chat," and I looked, and then I tried to like, you try to catch up. So I had a lot of catching up to do, and I saw what's going on. I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm down." Like, so tell people. I think what was the motive for you to kind of put this thing together?
You know what? It's a long time coming. I think it was really yesterday that was the breaking point, I think, for a lot of people. I'm going to shout out to Angela for her just, calling it out as it was. People who are not representing Black conservatives or, libertarians well, and not really showing the full perspective of what we really think comes to issues like this, when it's really clear cut. So I wanted our voice to be heard on this issue, and not just be something where the mainstream Black conservative was, essentially taking over our narrative. So.
That's how you felt, huh? You felt like they were trying to control the narrative. I did.
Most definitely.
I know. No, nobody would ever try to do that.
Not at all.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So yeah, it was interesting seeing all the responses to people that from a lot of you guys. So that's why I thought too it would be important for you guys to say your piece, respond to some comments that you've gotten from actually responding to this case and talking about it. And then also at the end, just helping people understand where we're coming from and what we can do in the future to make this, less corny, as Maj Toure would say. So yeah. This is true. Yeah. So that's it. So I thought we could start out with, facts, because I'm sure everybody knows that everybody was upset that we didn't wait for the facts to come out 2 to 3 months later after the shooting happened. So people want facts. We're gonna have to talk about facts.
I just want to say one thing.
Shit me.
I noticed that there wasn't a video from one of these people. There wasn't a video about a pro video for the conservatives that were protesting the quarantine. There was no pro video for that. But for this incident, for Ahmaud Arbery, they were so quick to rush to YouTube. I just wondering why they wanted grift on this particular topic. You know, like you said, wait for the facts to come out. But it's just weird when you see people pounce right on these topics and just pick sides right away. It's really scary.
Well, let me ask, oh, sorry. Let me ask something real quick, right? Now, I stay in Charleston, South Carolina. Of course, we had the Walter Scott incident, North Charleston. We had the Walter Scott incident here, 2015. And there's, you know, from understanding how, I would say, injustice goes, sometimes you don't need, and I'm going to say it like this, I'm going to be honest, sometimes you don't need all the facts. Sometimes you have just enough to understand where a line has been drawn. So in this situation, you got an unarmed man, whether he committed a crime or not. The police, you got two citizens who, of course, they're not the police officers. You pull out a gun on somebody. What do you expect the man to do? He fought back. So at that point, anything else really doesn't matter. You can wait for as much facts you want to, but at the end of the day, he was running unarmed, posed no threat. The guys pulled a gun out on him. He fought. You don't need no more facts after that. And I'm just being real.
I think that those are the facts. When people say things like that, right? And I kind of took offense to it because, again, full disclosure, I have an individual agenda and I have a collective agenda. I think that as an activist and advocate for getting Black people across America armed, this is the moment. This is exactly what, you know, kind of like the purpose of what we're talking about. With that being the case, to have other, not limited to, but Black conservatives to then run to an outdated talking point of, well, we need to see all of the facts. Well, I could agree with that a little bit more if the video clip was right at the shooting. I could agree with that a little bit more. But you have some time, even if it's 5, 10, 15 seconds of you driving up to get to the person is running away from you. As a safe and responsible firearm owner, that does not fit the description of your life being in imminent danger. When you get out of the car and you show the firearm, that is brandishing, that is unlawful. Now, as a human, we have this thing called a fight or flight response. If he was already running away and you followed him and he's now cornered and now you present a firearm for him, his fight or flight response kicks in again. So he tries to get that firearm that you're brandishing at him off of him and you shoot him. The reality is the timing of what happened before and these guys have already said, we had a few burglaries around the neighborhood. They've already admitted that. The reality is the facts are you were driving to look for someone that posed no threat to your life. You had a firearm, you brandished, and it ended with that person dying. It is not a conservative standpoint at all in any way, shape, or form. It is a bootlicking standpoint to say that somehow he deserved it or he was suicidal or we don't know what he did beforehand. It doesn't matter. If that guy if Ahmaud Arbery would have taken his money out of his house and he got out of his house and was running away, at that point, you don't fit the description of a citizen's arrest. You don't fit the description of, you're not a law enforcement officer anymore. And I think that a law enforcement officer saying that we don't know all of the facts in that scenario poses an extreme contradiction. Brandon Tatum is an ex-law enforcement officer. You know the meaning of the continuum of force, imminent danger, stand your ground laws, castle doctrine. You're supposed to be somewhat versed in that. So it's irresponsible and it's a super contradiction to say that, as well as that's even before we get to the conversation of making conservatives look like they're in alignment with Black people being killed. That makes every conservative's job much harder.
Yeah, if I could, I think. Yeah, and I'll just add just one short thing here. The people who are saying that we need to wait for more information to come out, there's two types of people saying that. First, the people who have not read a single report on the story and just saw the video. Yeah, the second are the people who are being dishonest, lying, and trying to distract from what happened here. the fact is, there is tons of information on this case already, even before the video even broke. There are multiple news reports. I read, before I even wrote my article on it, I read 5 to 6 different reports off the bat. So we already have a lot of information. There are times when it's appropriate to wait a few days, and there's times where you already have enough information. Like Jonathan said, you already have enough to determine that what these people did was already suspect and already wrong. So I just wanted to throw that in there.
I mean, I think if we even destruct the premise of the argument here, right? The premise is this individual fits the description of someone who allegedly broke into multiple homes in the neighborhood. These guys were not, to Maj's point, they were not sworn law enforcement officers. They were not sworn in to protect the community, if you will. And what they are citing as a defense is an old, rather draconian Georgia law that essentially states if you see a crime happening or you presume that a crime is happening, you have the legal authority in the state of Georgia to attempt the citizen's arrest. But the underlying flaw in that premise is that merely because, I would argue, this person was an African American, they just assumed he had to be guilty. There is no way to prove one way or another that he committed the alleged crimes that they think he did, or perhaps he was just merely someone jogging in a neighborhood like thousands of other people all across America right now with nothing else to do. And so I think the underlying issue that I have with a lot of conservatives, particularly African American conservatives, this idea that we don't need the facts, or we need more of the facts, that I should say, I think that's a moot point. Because even if he did commit the crime, let's say he was looking into a house, and let's say his intent was to burglarize that house, does he no longer have the presumption of innocence? Is he no longer innocent until proven guilty? Does he no longer have the right to go before a judge, to go before a jury, to defend himself against alleged crimes? All of those reasonable doubt things have been thrown out of the window merely because people are bringing up his past. I don't know a single person who's perfect, right? And in most instances, people will say, well, you don't want to look at a person's past because individuals change. But why is that not the case when these types of instances and issues and incidents occur when it's an African American? If it's a young white person who commits an act, oh, they must be mentally ill, or they must be depressed, or there must be something going on in their family life that led them down this track. That presumption is not the same as it pertains to African Americans. And I think that's a fundamental flaw, no matter what the argument is, no matter what the individual allegedly did.
Yeah, you know what? 100. You know, and I'm gonna ask something. And to be honest with you, man, just from reading a lot of the commentary of what they've been saying, I don't even think they believe what they're saying. I think, honestly, this is just me. I think, you know, they want to get their little, you know, they got their little YouTube shows, and you know, they got to keep their base. You know, they're and like I was saying before we got on, it's like reverse race baiting. You know what I'm saying? Like they got to say things like that to keep their audience charged up, because you know that's what they feed into. So if they can continue to spew the rhetoric of making them feel comfortable with their biasness, then that means they're gonna get more speaking engagements. You know, they're gonna get more hits on YouTube. See, that they gotta do that. So they'll throw another black man under the bus who wasn't doing anything presumably wrong at the time, and they'll throw him under the bus and make smart comments and have their little cheerleading squad come in so that they know they can continue to get hits on their channel. So be like I said, I don't even think they really believe what they're saying. They out for the game. We
got a super chat. We got a super chat came in from the audience, and we're gonna hop right back. Shout out to Hotep with it. Thank you, homie. Appreciate you. Said we lit Hoteps and Herb all over again. You already know. Great conversation tonight, big brother. You already know, little bro. Blessings and high favor to all of y'all. Stay safe and stay with it. My bad. Go ahead, y'all.
No, I'm sorry. I just think that what the focus on for us should be that, you know, we got to somehow get Black conservatism in a more positive light, because not just with this situation that happens, you know, this is, and you see the, you know, the Larry Elders and the Candace Owens, who hasn't had it. I haven't seen if she said anything, but that type really hurts us as a people. To me, as people that want to see more Black people, as me, I will speak for myself. I just want to see more Black people come this direction, because I feel, and anybody that knows me knows, I feel that liberalism has failed us. Okay, as an ideology, it has failed us. And when we see people that look at that video, they're Black, and they know what that skin color carries with it, and the history of this country and the history of everything that's happened around the world, everywhere. And they see that video and they say, we got to wait for the facts, because they don't want to offend, some of their white fans. It just strikes me as something that, we cannot accept. We cannot accept that, because this is why I said this on Twitter the other day. This is why we get called Uncle Toms and all this kind of crap, because we're not, many people in our audience are Black. Most Black Democrats or Black liberals, you want to call them, feel that we don't stand up. We're not willing to call out, we're not willing to call out the racism on our side of the aisle, which I know the people in this group are willing to do it. But the people that are spotlighted mostly, that you see on Fox News, or you hear on Rush Limbaugh, or you hear on Sean Hannity, they don't want to talk about it at all. They don't want to bring it up because they don't want to offend anybody. They don't want to, like I said, they don't want to, piss off their audience. And those people, to me, hurt our cause. And our cause should be to expand the number of Black people on the right side of the political aisle. And we cannot do that. We cannot do that with people like Candace Owens and Larry Elder and all those type of people that just keep downplaying and act like, there is no difference in this world besides walking down the street when you're Black and walking down the street when you're white. Because there's a difference and everybody knows it. But some people just, want to,
So I think a few things here, and if y'all are saying so many things, is like setting off bells in my brain. So I think the person that says that, I think our messaging is, so one, I disagree with LeBron James, right? LeBron James, first of all,
yeah, we're not being hunted.
That it's like, bro, I'm actually not being hunted everywhere that I go. Like that part is like, come on, bro. I like hang out everywhere. Like I have drinks, I Twitter, I say, yo, my exact location is, so I'm not hunted. So in that extreme, that person's under one end of the spectrum of that spell. On the other end of the spectrum of that spell, it's the person that says, oh, look, everything is perfect. We are in a post-racial America. There are absolutely very little situations that even exist that would be race-based at all. I think both of those individuals, conservative, liberal, whatever, are under the same spell, but they just diametrically opposed on different levels of that same spell. But saying that to say, I also don't think that they don't believe what they're saying. Yo, Hotep, me and you, remember I asked you this. I called you one day. I'm like, yo, you think bro actually really believe what? And I believe that at a certain point, I believe it was, I'm going to do this for the paper. I'm going to do this for I believe at a certain point it was that. But if you start lying to yourself over and over and over and over again, the mind is powerful. Your virtual reality that you create for yourself, regardless of everybody else's real reality, the virtual reality and the environment that you've constructed for yourself becomes real to you. I do think that these people in their scenarios, in their world, because of their disconnect, I don't ever want to go to the Black community. I don't ever want to go to the brown community, so forth and so on. When you mix that reality that they've created for themselves, as well as the fact that there may be, and again, I care for all these people. They created a space for this conversation to happen with them being wrong, right? I think that there's a certain level of self-hate and the lack of knowledge of self that they have not acquired. Now, you cannot have that knowledge of self and then start acquiring different positions. And now your virtual reality and your removal from the thing that makes you have to deal with you actually do believe that. So I don't think that a lot of these folks. That's like saying that police brutality is a myth. It's not. It's definitely not a myth for my white friends that got beat up by the police. You know, so saying this to say, nah, I don't think they unaware. I think they aware, and I think that in order to be reprogrammed, like I could do it. I could fix that with some Garvey, some Denmark VC, some Malcolm, but you'd have to pay me tuition. You get what I'm saying? So I think that they just don't take a time to self-reflect and study world history, melanated history, and American history that's not only associated with a red, white, and blue flag too. And I think they're creating a good little, a very good like cocktail of lack of knowledge mixed with self-hate, mixed with escapism. And now that you have a platform, you have other people that are not going to be objective, that are also maybe running from themselves or also have not identified themselves. And now because you can reach them because you have hundreds of thousands of followers, what you say looks like the gospel, but it ain't factual, you know? So I think they've done a very good job, especially when you can make money doing it. You know what I'm saying? So it's like me saying, I was on the live with Angie, and I won't talk much after this, y'all. I was on the, with Angela, I was on the live, and I said, you know, when I've allegedly sold heroin to people. Like, if you're making money, and after you're making money, you could try to tell yourself all types of things about why it's okay. It's cool because they wanted it. Well, is it though, really? You know, so it's a lot of things that you, and if there's no mirrors around, you know, you never really have to look at yourself. So I think that, I think they're aware. I think that, again, I don't know exactly who said it, but to the point made earlier, I think these have to be teachable moments to get people to identify the difference between Frederick Douglass. Angela had a great post, a Frederick Douglass conservative, and this new age thing that we're calling conservative values, the Marcus Garvey conservative. You know, that's a lot different. The Harriet Tubman conservative, you know, the Malcolm post-Mecca Malcolm conservative is a lot different than what we're being packaged and fed. And I think that's not, we can say that in a manner where it's not attempting to be offensive to people that are on that wave, you know, but at the same time, the truth walking the door, a lie got to jump out the window. And I think these types of discussions are that truth, more and more that truth walking in that door, from my perspective. But I absolutely don't think that they don't believe what they're saying. I think that they are fully immersed in the digital projections of themselves that they've repeated to their psyche over and over again.
Well, I think
a bit more cynical than
harder
human. I don't think it. Yeah. I really think that it's all a show. That's me. But
see,
Can I say something?
Of it, bro. Oh, go ahead.
Let Sharice. Sharice, what's up, girl? How you doing, girl? Hey, girl.
Hi, everybody. Okay, this situation right here, it really hit different for me because I had never really spoke out concerning these situations, and I'm in a difficult situation where I feel like conservatives who have this point of view where they always have to mention black on black crime every time something like this happens, or they always have to mention Chicago. They're kind of making it worse for us as black conservatives because we're trying to bring black people over here, and if we can't even stand up for them during this time, and we can't even, you know, take the time to listen and be empathetic, what is even the point of trying to bring them over here? We want them to do the same for us. We want them to listen to us. But if you know, you got even black conservatives within the movement getting told, you know, I've been told I'm spewing anti-white rhetoric. Sharice, you're playing the victim mentality. No, I'm not. I'm calling this out. It's clear as day what happened. And I don't understand how you can kind of justify what happened with other things. Oh, we need to wait for the facts. Oh, we need to mention black on black crime. Baby, I always mention black on black crime. I was just arguing with somebody the other day about a shooting that happened in my neighborhood. Excuse me. Don't call my page and all of that. But anyways, yes. I have a lot more to say about that, but I just feel like they're making it worse for the black conservatives who are actually trying to bring people over and for people to leave liberalism.
Chad got a $4.99 super chat. He said, I got here late, but I'm here now. And I just want to listen and learn tonight. Great group. Hotel. Shout out to Chad. Appreciate you, homie.
What is the solution for this? Are we starting the beginnings of kind of like, you know, like, and I don't want to say it in a manner where it has to be a split. There may be a split theoretically and philosophically on certain areas, but is this the beginnings in you guys' and women's opinion or perspective? Is this the beginning of creating the more structured and defined quote unquote new age, or more so modernized, clearly defined definition of what conservative values or Black conservatism is?
Yeah,
I
NPR
think you
did a
certainly
whole-
have to. I mean, because what we have is a dichotomy, a false dichotomy, I would add, where what is being presented by some of the individuals that you guys have alluded to, and I have no way of knowing one way or the other whether they truly believe the rhetoric that they spout, or whether they're just doing it merely to maintain their standing. But the reality is, when most African Americans see that, the presumption is that is how all African Americans feel. Even if you look at the cultural values going all the way back to the Black church, which is arguably the oldest conservative entity in the United States, most African Americans are conservative. That is a fact for anyone who's ever studied political ideology.
Mm-hmm.
And so it doesn't make sense for why at least 40 to 50 to 60% of African Americans aren't at least considering more seriously voting for a potential Republican candidate. But when you look at the options, when you look at the rhetoric, Maj, why would they? And so I do think at some point you do have to have people such as everyone who's having this discussion tonight to say, this is what it means to be a conservative. This is how this differs from white conservatism, because our experiences are different. The issues and problems that impact our communities are different. And so from that vantage point, what are we addressing as it pertains to conservatism? What are we trying to conserve to help our community move forward in a more impactful way? And I think some of the individuals that the party, just to be honest, have sort of put forth, don't do that justice. They do a disservice to what I think everybody here stands for. And even among us, we have our differences. But I would argue at the core, the objective is, how can we help move our people forward? If that isn't the underlying premise of what you stand for, then I don't think you should be speaking on behalf of what it means to be a Black conservative.
Well, the party puts forth the same people that we're talking about here. You know, these are the same people who won't say.
Can I say something?
We're gonna let Miss Angela go right after Charles.
All right. They don't say these things because it's not comfortable when you're going and talking to the major donor the next day, when you were just espousing, you know, all these beliefs that they stand against or that make them uncomfortable. And these are the same people that the party puts forth. But the problem is, I mean, it's much more than the rhetoric. These people don't show up in the communities at all. I mean, they don't go talk about issues that are very, very important to people, like illegal dumping in, you know, Third Ward here in Houston or something. Nobody talks about that kind of stuff. And that's the stuff we need to be talking about, both on the local and the federal level, because, you know, Republicans, conservatives could be leading on things like housing affordability, but nobody wants to touch it because, you know, affordable housing is a dirty word or something. So it's a mentality shift that we need to start. And I think that this conversation is a great way to start that, because the ones who are getting attention right now are certainly not doing a good job and certainly not representing, I would say, a majority of us on this call.
Miss Angela, it's your world.
She muted.
Okay, I'm unmuted now. So first of all, I wanted to tell all of you that I love your courage, and I love that you are willing to stand to what you believe is true. And then secondly, I want to say that these last 2 days for me have been eye-opening, because this is the first time I've ever come under attack like this by people from my own party. Now, mind you, when I first started this movement, I used to get a lot of attacks from people that I loved and were associated with, just for associating myself with the Republican Party. And I stood my ground, and that hurted. But then I'm like, okay, this is over here is a little different, because when I came in, it was like everybody was all so supportive, and I just never have experienced where I see so many people. It's like you've got the president that has tweeted that this is wrong. You've got Ivanka that has tweeted. You've got Sarah Sanders. You've got Nikki Haley. You have all of these prominent people that are not Black that are speaking up and saying that justice needs to be served. I think what hurt me the most, they keep saying we're not waiting for the facts. We didn't give this time to play out. This man has been dead since February. So these people literally have been free, have not charged, been living their lives like nothing has happened. It was time. I also understand their viewpoint where they're saying, hey, wait a minute, why is the video just now being released? Is this a media ploy? Are they doing this to kind of tamper with the election? My point is, it was better now than ever. It was better now than never. It doesn't matter if the video was released today, if the video was released 2 weeks from now. The point is that they would not be arrested had that not been that outcry. So another thing that has me upset is them using Black on Black crime as a defense mechanism to justify this. Now, I could respect it if these people use their platforms to speak about Black on Black crime all the time, in addition to speaking out against some of these cases that involve injustice when it is a white person and a Black person involved. Now, what I'm starting to realize is that the people that have the voices and the platforms and that are supposed to represent us is they are not actually in the community doing the actual work. So when we talk about Brandon Tatum and we talk about Blexit, yeah, you go, you stand on stage, you speak, you share your story, but are you actually in the community doing the work? Now, one of the things that I thought was really distasteful was the video that Brandon made. And I don't know if you guys saw it, but Brandon made a video of him walking in his neighborhood. And he basically was saying, oh, you know, this is my neighborhood. I can walk, I can jog. I don't have to worry about it. I left the hood, you know, such amount of years ago. I don't want to go back. I don't want to live in the hood. My wife is white. My son is white. Like, he's completely detached himself, to me, it seems as if, from the Black movement or from Black people or from, you know, his Blackness, so to speak. And I have to be very careful in the way that I word things, because you guys know that I'm running for office. But I understand that, I guess what I'm trying to say is I can't understand why they feel as though it's okay for us to use our platforms to defend this administration and to defend this president that is constantly accused of being a racist. But then again, we can't turn around and use our platforms to stand for injustice when it comes for Black people. Now, if you guys are really, really serious about winning Black people over and rescuing them from the plantation, then one of the things that they have to understand is that we are hearing what it is that they're crying out about. We are paying attention to their issues, and we are also willing to act. So I think for me personally, right now, people are saying, well, there's a division in the Black conservative movement. You got some people on this side and you got some people on that side. And I'm at this point where I'm like, I'm with y'all, because y'all just, all of the work that I've been doing for the last year or two in my community with my people and all of these people that have followed me from BET and follow my page to get them to wake up. Black people are ready for something to happen. They're ready to walk away from the Democratic Party and they want something to go to, but they're not going to come to this side when they see that we are not willing to openly receive them. And what I mean by that is, when I stand up and speak about what happened, you got all of these conservatives up under my page talking about Black on Black crime. And, well, if you wasn't white, would you say something about it? This is why the majority of Black people do not want anything to do with the Republican Party. And I just think that maybe we do need a little bit of division to differentiate the real from the fake. Because some of us really out here doing this work for real. You understand where I'm coming from? Like, I've been working in my community for the past 15 years. It's not no play with me. I'm not worried about trying to stroke nobody's ego. I'm not worried about trying to be nobody's friend. I'm really about restoration and justice. So that's all I got to say.
You know, if I could piggyback on that real quick, I think what Angela said was spot on, especially with there being a division in Black conservatism. But I like to think of it more as a renaissance in Black conservatism. Because the thing is, those voices have been around for decades. The ones that are talking the same talk that Tatum and Candace Owens talk, they're not saying anything new. This is the line that the GOP establishment has been peddling for decades. So I'm loving that we can have outlets like this where people can hear an alternative Black conservative voice that isn't going to call Black Democrats slaves on the plantation and bring up Black on Black crime with the sole purpose to distract from a shooting like what happened with Ahmaud Arbery. So I think that's why a lot of us go so hard against the Black conservative establishment. That's what I call it, because people on the left, Black Democrats who might be more conservative, need to see that there are people like us out there who don't just toe that line. And the more they see that, I think the better position that we'll be in. I think it's going to be a long journey because, Angela, you're right. I mean, you still have a lot of people on the timeline of even ours that are talking about, oh, Black on Black crime, Chicago, 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 whatever, whatever, whatever. But the louder we speak and the more often we speak, I think the more progress we can make.
But you know what, I mean, guys, crime is all about proximity, number one. If you're white and you live around majority white people, you're going to likely kill more white people. I mean, that fallacy and that argument is just ludicrous to me. And it's one thing to bring up crime. I mean, it exists. It is a problem. What's the solution? Are you just going to keep speaking about the problem, or are you going to attempt to address the problem? Otherwise, you're speaking in a circle and you're talking about a policy paradox, because nothing is being happening to solve the problem. No one talks about white individuals and opioid usage. I don't see any of these individuals talking about every single tweet every other day about white individuals killing themselves at alarming. I mean, I could go down the list of policy issues that white Americans, particularly rural white Americans who are more likely voting conservative, are dealing with. But somehow, every single time, it seems to be everything is so pervasive just for Black people. Everything is anti-Black because there is this stigma with Blackness. And for me, I have a serious problem with that, because when you look at data, and I'm a data-focused, heavy guy, the data doesn't back a lot of the rhetoric. It doesn't. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't bring up the problems, but what I am challenging some of these other individuals, if you're going to bring up the problems, offer a serious and credible alternative solution to solving the problem. And I have yet to really see any cogent argument coming from these folks making that case.
Shout out to Victor Light 33. Appreciate you, homie. He said, yeah, the split is Hotep or die. Yatu Sabes. Steph Colonel said, Sonny Johnson, Ben told you about building relationships with people. Conservative Inc. aren't about anything else than talking and talking points. Uh-oh. Shout out to Miss Sonny Johnson. Damn, yo, why Sonny?
So it's three things to piggyback on what the first brother just said. So yes, I do think that speaking up louder. The whole time I've been saying the same thing for the 4 years that we've been doing the work at Black Guns Matter. And I have been unapologetic in that. I'm on the same stage as a Candace Owens or Brandon Tatum. I had my own thing at CPAC, which is the conservative political. I did a whole breakdown on Frederick Douglass there to give people that. So I do think if we maintain our integrity and the principles of conservative values or libertarian values, whichever way you want to go with it, it's still freedom. With that being the case, I don't think that, I think there's a little bit of gatekeeper thing going, because when there's places that, from my experience, where I can say exactly what I am, I do exactly what I do, you know exactly what I'm about. When there's no gatekeeper, and to be perfectly honest, some of the names that we brought up, there's been a little bit of gatekeeper syndrome. When there's no gatekeeper, I get repetitive asked to come back again, bigger platforms at the same location, so forth and so on. And I've never changed up what was being said. That's one. So I do think that. Two, I love when they bring up Chicago and conveniently ignore that Chicago's homicide rate has data-driven, their homicide rate has decreased for 3 going on 4 years straight. That's why it's not in the news as much anymore, because you can't use it as the same talking point. And I think if we're talking about that, like you said, if we're talking about when it was bad, we also have to talk about these are the things that has happened. If we're talking about quote unquote black on black crime, you also have to talk about that violent crime over the last decade, along with the raise of licenses to carry. Violent crime nationally has actually been going down for the last decade. So these are some of the things that I would implore some of our conservative brothers in any room, whether they're on this side or that side, quote unquote, or that in that renaissance. These are areas that we can touch on. And the last thing, solutions. That kind of ties in. when we're talking, because we're having this discussion tonight primarily based on, you know, the murder of Ahmaud Arbery. Again, I can't stress enough for people to be armed, especially conservatives, especially if you MAGA hat wearing. Mine don't say MAGA, mine say read, bitch. However, if you're MAGA hat wearing, if you're not, whatever, if you're conservative, if you're black, if you what, you should be armed. I can only think that, you know, Mr. Arbery would have been in a different space if he had a firearm when somebody, you know, hopped out on him with a firearm. You know, so I think that those are some of the solutions. And I think the individual challenge that we have in all of our perspective crafts, journalism, politics, all of these different things, is to maintain what our truths are, our values, those principles, as well as being who we are, as well as, you know, making sure that, okay, I'm Hotep, but I'm conservative, and these are the reasons why. And I think that we'll find in those individual lanes where we kind of like, you know, reign supreme, for lack of a better term, in our individual lanes, that does present solutions, because we are expressing that empathy that Sharice discussed. You know, I have yet to see, and I've said this a few times, I have yet to see Angela be on some other shit in a different room, on a different platform. And I think that, you know, whether it was BET, whether it's this, whether it doesn't matter. And I think that that's a part of the reason why I shouts to her for getting that pardon. But there's a bunch of work that went before that pardon. You can apply for a pardon and not get the shit. You know what I'm saying? So these are things that I think that give us very good examples of that, how we can maintain what we're on. And then, like you said, the real going to recognize and we create those empathetic outlets and avenues for us to get the Black community on this thing and show that there are multiple options. I've never seen, I don't even know, I can only see 4 screens, but it's obviously more than 4 people in this chat. I've never seen a conservative chat full of melanated beings from these diverse different areas, all on the same accord, disagreeing with someone that's on a different accord, and nobody's called nobody no negative name, you know? So these are examples of those types of solutions, and I just want to commend everybody for that as well.
Word.
I can piggyback on Maj on that part. Even just talking about the gun owners aspect of things. I mean, that was one of the things that was really, even just that aspect of the gun aspect of what those 2 guys were doing with their firearms, is that as gun owners, people who are in the gun community, we know that we have to be accountable for every single round that comes out of our firearm. And we know how important it is, if we're in a situation when we know it's clearly self-defense, that we're still probably even going to be detained or arrested in that situation. That's why we have Texas Law Shield. That's why we have lawyers, prepaid lawyers and stuff like that. It's a serious issue when we are able to actually use the trigger, pull the trigger on our firearm. So even in that respect, I mean, that has nothing to do with color, but even in that respect, it was really disheartening to see people who were using oh, well, he should have complied, or, well, why was he wrestling with the firearm? I mean, that's the type of stuff that I think people look at, particularly when they're seeing the comments, when they're engaging with people who are actually bringing this stuff up. And I think that's what really gets them off of the track of, okay, well, if these people are really doing the things that I thought that they were doing, meaning making excuses when it makes no sense in any other scenario, then why would I want to join this team? Because it's hard
they're
for
not
us.
even giving up no free Obama phones over there. Why would I go over there? Giving me nothing. and they corny. I don't get a phone, and they corny. I'm out. I'm staying over here.
And here's the thing. I'm all for the Second Amendment, but we need to move it to a place where I shouldn't have to carry a weapon if I don't want to. He shouldn't have been killed jogging down the street, regardless of if he had a firearm or he didn't have a firearm. Either way, let's say he did have a firearm. They had 2. You know what I mean? So, I mean, we need to move to a place where we are safe to walk down any neighborhood, run, jog, whatever, be in any neighborhood, and not have to worry about somebody rolling up on us like they 5-0 and ending our lives. You know, like I was saying, I said that could have been, to me, that could have been me, that could have been one of my sons, and I would be going crazy right now if that was one of my sons. I'd be going crazy. And we can't allow this stuff to go unnoticed and untalked about, especially from the people who have the audiences that some of us may have, some of us may not have. But we have what the conservative movement puts forward are not people who want to talk about this kind of stuff. Okay, they want to ignore it and put it in the background and say it doesn't happen. And we have to fight that, and we have to fight that hard, or we're never going to get anywhere in the Black community as far as moving people over to this side of the aisle. With this side of the aisle is going to do better for them in the long term than what they're getting now from the Democrats and the left. Okay, and that needs to be the end game. And if we don't fight these people, as hard as we can to make sure they are doing their responsibility, carrying out the responsibilities they need to be carrying out on their platforms to help elevate the conversation and get us to a place where Black people can walk around any neighborhood in this nation and not have to worry about getting gunned down because they look like somebody that might have robbed somebody 2 days ago. We can't have that anymore. So we have to make sure we're calling out these people, because that's my focus. I think that's what we need to do. We need to make sure that we are elevating the conversation, making sure these people know that we're going to watch them, and we're going to make sure that anytime they forget about where they come from and how this world works, we're going to be there to remind them.
And can I say one thing?
Oh, go ahead.
One more thing.
I'll go after you.
Yeah, this is my last time saying something, but okay. It really took me this situation right here to kind of see it's not really that Black people are stubborn on the left, or Black liberals are stubborn and they don't want to move over. It's our approach to them and the way we're approaching them. It's not even President Donald Trump, because even he addressed this in the right way. And he didn't even mention Black on Black crime not one time. It's his constituents. It's the people in the Republican Party who have a bad approach to Black people and don't know how to address Black people and how to approach them. But that's all I have to say.
Hey, what did President Trump, I've been kind of like out of the phone zone too much today. What did President Trump say about this murder?
He was basically saying that it's a tragedy and he feels sorry for the family, stuff like that. But he didn't mention Black on Black crime. So I don't know why people keep mentioning that. The two are not mutually exclusive. You could talk about one without talking about the other. Right. How is Black on Black crime relevant to this?
It isn't.
And I want to add on. Thank you, Sharice, too, to what the brother before was saying. See, me, I did 8.5 years in federal prison, so I can't carry a firearm. I wish I could.
You can.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
Like the brother said, we gotta. There's other ways I can defend myself. He reminded me of Sarah Suluseti too. But I guess it's like what he said. I should be able to ride around right now or walk and not have to worry about fitting the description of somebody who is a threat. And because I'm 6'6", 350 pounds. I'm a big dude. So, when people see me, they get intimidated. Oh man, this big Black guy, whatever. But there should be a point to where, I don't have to worry about a stigma being placed on me. And I think that these conversations are real good, right? Because we got to keep it up. We got to be able to change the narrative. So the narrative, in order for it to be changed, is through constant, communication, constant talks, reaching out and touching people and letting people know we have to address the hard issues that people don't want to talk about. We got to get there. We got to start. I run a community center. The community center I run, is right in the middle of the hood. That's what I do every day of the week. I'm engaged in the community. Everybody know me, from the streets and the penitentiary, out home. Everybody knows me. So, me being a conservative, the only reason I get pushback, but the only reason I don't really get too much pushback is because so many people know me and I'm in the area where I grew up in. But other than that, people.
And because you 6'6", 350 pounds.
Yep.
That helps, man. That helps.
Yo, shout out to the chat. 50 Shades Saul G. He said, good conversation. I hope this energy can continue, but some of the statements here do not match your Twitter feed. I hope you ain't talking about me. I know you ain't talking about me, but
I wonder who he putting on blast. Who he putting on blast?
Tell Saul to stop hating.
We talking about.
Yo, sorry,
Back off,
you gonna have to
Solomon.
name names. You gonna have to name
Back
names.
off.
You can't just be spraying and praying over there.
Back off, Uncle Saul.
Better call Saul.
So what do we do? In moving forward? Because I'm gonna get out of here because I'll talk y'all head off forever. What do we do? A question that I'll pose. What is the best approach to dealing with the brothers and sisters that may have, because I don't want to make it like this is the bash the quote unquote more famous Black conservative vibe. You know what I mean? But what do we do in those spaces, even with conservatives that may have smaller reach, but still have some of that same rhetoric? What is some of the folks in the chat? What's your perspective on how we approach and handle them? Because, you know, are they above saving per se or reaching out to? Or what is the approach that we think we could take with those people, whether they, you know, higher up on the totem pole or lower down? How do we deal with that?
I would say for my part to focus on what conservative has to offer and what Black conservatism has to offer. I mean, it's one thing to talk about what they're doing wrong, but we also have to put forth the actual solution as well. It's not enough to just say, oh, well, I don't like the way Blexa does this or that. That's appropriate. But also, how do we think it should be done? What message do we have for conservatives that'll change their minds and say, you know what, maybe we have been approaching this the wrong way? How can we work to make the conservative movement more welcoming to Black people? I think that if we're focusing on that aspect of it, even more than what's being doing wrong, then I think that more people will start to say, you know what, I never thought about it that way. Because I mean, I've gotten that a lot. I'm sure a lot of us have gotten that from a lot of other conservatives. Like, you know what, I never heard it put like that before. So I think continuing to engage, continue to do more videos like this, things like this, so people can see that Black conservatives are not a monolith. That way they have more ideas to pull from, and they can choose the ones that are the best ideas. Because honestly, I think our ideas are better than theirs.
And I
Just
think
be consistent, though. If you're consistent, I think that's the real simple thing here is that you don't care. You know if something's right, speak up. I mean, just like what Maj said earlier, there are two extremes. You have the people who think that everything is racist, and then you have the people who think that there's nothing that's racist anymore, that we're in a post-racist society. So that's not reality, and that's not healthy, and that's just not truthful. It's just because people, make more money, get more attention when they're on the extreme of something. But if your agenda is really to help the Black community or any community or just people in general, then you know what's right, and you should stand up for what's right when you need to, even when people on your side are going to push back on it. I think that is the real thing. That's the hard thing for a lot of people, is that, you know, you have your followers and you know that they're usually right with you on most things, but when it comes to that, even though it's good for them, you're afraid to talk about that or speak up about that. That's the problem.
Because you cutting off their cash flow. Streets Politics with Talisia, she said, just stick to the facts and stop jiving for a praise. I don't know who y'all talking to, but it sounds like y'all came in here with a grudge.
Whoa.
I want to say, I know who
Tina
Felicia
said
is.
Blacks, hold on, one more. Tina said Blacks voting them for decades. Do we matter yet? My bad, go ahead.
I just want to say that people can see the fake. Like, people know the real from the fake. I mean, and if they don't see it off the rip, then eventually you will reveal yourself. And to me, it's really disappointing. Now, I haven't really had any issues with Candace myself per se. I may not necessarily agree with the delivery, but I can't sit up here and specifically say that I myself personally has had any problems. And what I don't want to do as a Black woman is to just down another Black woman. And we're not doing that, right? Everybody has their opinion. I think that Candace definitely has garnered their attention, but do they have what it takes to reach Black America? And I think right now our focus needs to be, well, what my focus is, I don't know what everybody else doing. It's like, everybody talk about how we need to wake up the Black community, and then when you start waking up the Black community, then, oh, is it a problem? You understand where I'm coming? Well, y'all get ready to get this work. because the Frederick Douglass Republican Party has been rebirthed, and this is the very beginning of it. This is about being free from the Democratic Party. We have work to do. So worrying about stepping on toes, worrying about walking on eggshells, worrying about who gonna think this, who gonna think that. Remember, silence is what got us where we at now. This is not the hour or the season for us to be silent on these issues that we know impact us. You have to be some kind of heartless to see that video, and after what you saw, to want to go on a defense and start talking about black on black crime for you to be a black person. Yeah. You have to be some sort of heartless or cold to not be moved by that. Now, when it comes to King Face and my tagger, I seen them say, hey, wait a minute, let's get all the facts. But they did not go on to say black on black crime. Let's talk about black on black crime. Now, mind you, the same people that want to talk about black on black crime don't always talk about black on black crime, and they never talk about these situations where there are injustices. Now, I have been really careful with my platform. I don't post every police shooting or every incident that involves police, because I know sometimes we also got to have accountability in the black community. Sometimes they be on some BS. Sometimes they resisting. Sometimes they fighting. I don't get into that. But when wrong is wrong and you got an issue with calling out something wrong, then I have an issue, because it makes me understand that you're not going to stand. You ready to fold. You're going to fold. You're not going to stand. So if you're going to fold, you don't need to stand with me, because I don't do no folding. You understand where I'm coming from? It's time to get the work done. So I just want to encourage you all to stay real. You understand where I'm coming from? Don't worry about playing into somebody else's emotions. Don't worry about what they say, because in this situation, what we got going on, we damned if we do it, we damned if we don't.
Right.
Right? Y'all stay encouraged. I'm getting ready to go. I love y'all.
Hey, same thing. I got a really bad shorty in the next room. So
TMI.
I'm messing with y'all.
Oh God, dude, really?
Nah, you capping.
Is this what we're doing today?
I want everybody to go donate to Angela Stanton King's site. She is running for office.
For Congress.
You know what I'm saying? You need to donate. As somebody that ran for office, it's going to take a lot of bread, and she in the South. So I want
running
everybody
against
to go
John Lewis.
Absolutely.
And donate to Black Guns Matter.
Yeah, do that too. Yeah, we.
Oh yeah, I need
make sure you get strapped too.
I need it. Oh, I'm mad, bro. You know I got my 4.5 in there sitting on the dog. As soon as I got parting, I went and got me a 4.5. Please believe it. But I appreciate you guys. The website is Stanton King for Congress. We need to, if we want to see a difference, y'all really want to know what we can do? If we want to see a difference, we need to fight, and we need to get in office so we can be the change that we want to see. Sitting back, waiting on somebody to do something for us, or waiting on people to see things our way. Why y'all think y'all know my story. I got up and decided to run for office. I want to see y'all do the same thing. Let's put this same energy on the Congress floor, and we can do it as Republicans. Remember, the Republican Party was created to abolish slavery. This is our party.
Yes.
Yes.
Run for office. I love y'all. Bye.
Bye.
Peace, Queen.
How you hang up?
Hold tap to the Queen. Hold tap to Miss Angela. Damn. That's that King blood coming down the line.
Word.
Talicia said she's not talking about anybody in the panel. I know you wasn't. I was trying to get this shit juiced up. I know we got trolls in the chat. Yes, I'm trying to juice this shit up, get a little juicy. Maybe somebody pick it up, Fox News or something.
Hey, well, eventually, man, if we
take shots at Brandon Tatum.
Ooh.
Shots thrown.
But you know, I mean, really, in all honesty, the more and more we stay focused and stay laser focused, and we in the community, they're gonna have to listen to us. They're gonna have to hear us. Like we can force their hand. I mean, after a while, you can only run for so long. Eventually, you gonna have to come out of hiding. And I think conversations like this are gonna pull a lot of them out of hiding. We're gonna force people to have this conversation. I think we just got to remain diligent, remain strong. You know, we got to stay on our A game, stay reading, studying in the community. You know, talking to people, Man, I think we can do it. I know we can do it. Just got to stay on top.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
Well, do you guys want to do some question and answers before we leave? Is there anybody who's asking questions?
Yeah, shout out to the chat, people that came through in the chat. Yo, somebody said earlier, it was the MAGA rapper. And he said, I don't want to misquote him. I know he in the chat watching. Hello, sir. How are you, sir? No, you're not allowed to come up here and talk with us. I want to pull this quote up. He said, because this, I just found this to be hilarious. You know, I wish it was the truth, because I would say a lot about our organization that me and Unc and Doe built. So I wish I could say that he was on and correct. But he, you know, usually he don't even usually respond to me much. You know, we don't have too much interacting. But he said, so I saw it. What I tweeted out was, Black conservatives out here risking their grift bucks to defend Ahmaud Arbery is impressive. I was like, oh damn, I ain't know it was Black conservatives like this, right? So I saw that, I was like, all right. So then he said low awareness. He said they're actually going lengths to defend him. Now peep this, to impress the Black community and hoteps so they can grow their base but go off. Grow your base or mess with the hoteps? I didn't know we had Stain like that. Appreciate, thank you for, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, that's what it is. Word up. You know what I'm saying? I didn't know how to respond to it. So my response was, is that so?
But you know, here's the thing though. Imagine being upset because Black conservatives are mad about two white guys shooting a Black man and for no good reason. Imagine being upset about that. Like, come on now, dude.
That doesn't make any sense.
That's why, like I said, I don't know if I'm in denial myself, but I just cannot come to the conclusion that they really believe this stuff. It's just, I'm scratching my head on it, because statements like that, I mean, how you really believe? Now we standing up for people. Like, if something happened to you, you want us to ride for you. Somebody slapped you off, somebody pulled a gun on you, you gonna want us to ride for you. You know, any injustice, man, we should always be there at the drop of a dime. I don't understand fundamentally how people can be upset that we want to stand up for our people. Even the white people don't even agree with what they're saying.
That's what I'm saying.
There are a lot of people.
Literally, I see a whole bunch of comments on their pages saying that they don't agree. And you know, are you really seeing this? Are you really saying this?
It is a business model. Just remember, it's a business model. I really sincerely believe that it's a business model. These people know what they're doing. They're not stupid. They know that if they say they avoid all this, you know, they don't want to be called a race baiter. So they avoid all this talk about anything that has to do with any type of, you know, the only way you know they're Black is if you look at their picture, basically. Okay. They don't mention anything. If they didn't have a picture, they just had like one of them on the social media to have like one of those egg things. You wouldn't know they were Black. Okay, so this is how they avoid all this stuff. They just want to make sure they keep the checks rolling in, and they follow the Larry Elder model. And I'm not afraid to. I call these people out. I'm just because I'm just tired of it. I'm not jealous of them. I don't really care.
Larry Elder?
Huh?
That was personal. We gonna have to get into that. You ain't just gonna slide right past that and say we ain't gonna stop and extrapolate that point.
Oh no, I go after Larry Elder. I mean,
what's wrong with Larry?
Oh my gosh.
Okay, Larry. I mean, Larry is the king of this, man. I mean, that's all he does. I mean, he's gonna like somebody said the other day. I think Jeff was the guy said that Larry's gonna say, "How come this guy is jogging with his father?" That's what Larry's gonna say.
I wouldn't say Larry. I would say Jesse
Larry
Lee
wasn't
Peterson.
jogging with his father. That's what Larry Elder would say. You know,
I would say
everything comes down for Larry Elder. Everything comes down to that a Black kid is not with his father 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Okay, that's Larry Elder. Okay, that's basically who he is. I mean, just watch him. I mean, I mean, I'm not saying the brother's not educated. Don't get me wrong. He knows what he's doing, but it's a grift, man.
I
It's a
would say
business
Jesse
model.
You guys are
Lee.
killing me. Oh my God.
Jesse Lee Peterson said racism doesn't exist and it has never existed. So I would say Jesse Lee Peterson.
Yeah, Jesse Lee Peterson. I mean, come on.
Jesse.
He the worst one. Sorry.
Yeah, but I don't want to give clout to the. I mean, that this is not what this was about. I mean, obviously
Yeah,
you
I got
guys
you.
can talk about who you guys want to talk about. But at the end of the day, it is concepts. It's just the fact that it's really simple. This is what NPR did a whole thing on. What is it? Code Switch, and they did a whole thing on Black Republicans and even like the modern movement. And they said that the big divide between Black conservatives are the Black conservatives who are race blind versus those who are race aware. And that's the big difference. And they said that the ones who are race aware are usually the ones, they said they're usually the ones that are not, you don't get as much money and they don't, kind of, the things that they do, like stuff like that. But I mean, I don't care. Again, I don't care about any of that stuff. And a lot of us have been on platforms where, like, I've been on Fox, I've done CPAC and stuff like that. And I think I've also had my own awakening as I've grown in this movement as well, of kind of going back to my maybe more liberal roots. It's not really liberal, but just being honest with myself about if my real intention before I die, if I got into this movement and we take all of this slack from people, right? Why are you doing that if your final intention is not to help our people? That's why we're here. We're here because we decided, you know what, we're going to take that risk and be in the spotlight and speak up, even though we could just cower. I like to call them closet conservatives, right? And just cower and say, yeah, I'm a conservative, but don't tell anybody about that, type of thing. But we decided we're going to be the voice and we're going to be the ones who are going to take the flack from people so that people can have people to look up to. And I think that's what the big issue is that what are you doing this for? At the end of the day, on your deathbed, did you help more people get into this movement and to be true to who they are as people? Because they are. Pew Research says 70% of African Americans are conservative.
Yes.
So we're doing a horrible job. 70%.
We got Steph Colonel said we don't run away from debates. It's the press conversations this side. That's what makes us different. Appreciate you, Steph. And we got Zakia Vasquez. She says, what about advocating Black people to be independent and make both parties work for our vote?
Yeah, definitely. Nobody deserves our vote.
I mean, that's the smartest strategy here. I mean, the reality is, looking at the data, there's no data metrics that I have seen, and I've worked on a lot of campaigns that indicates to me that you're going to see any significant shift in voting patterns and behaviors among African Americans to the Republican Party. You're starting to see shifts with Hispanics becoming more leaning towards more of the Democratic side. You look at the Asian community, which if you look at their voting patterns during the George W. Bush era and compare them to the 2018 midterms, you see a drastic shift. And then when you start looking generationally and you look at Gen Zers, an overwhelming majority of them lean towards the left. I mean, these aren't opinions, these aren't platitudes, this is pure statistical data. And I think for us as African American conservatives, if our goal, if our mission, if our objective is to attempt to persuade as many African Americans as possible why they should at least consider the Republican Party, you got to have the right candidates running like Angela. You have to have African Americans willing to speak up and speak out when it is very, very clear that an injustice has occurred against a member of our community. And it just really baffles me. And I know that it's a business model. I get it. I've been around politics long enough. I understand all of those things. But that should never supersede you willing to speak up for people who look like you. If we cannot do that, we're not going to make progress, guys.
I want to throw something out there. And this might make some people mad. And I really, really hope that I'm wrong about this. I really hope that I'm wrong. But the way the GOP is right now, if Black people were to say we're going to pull our vote away from the Democrats a little bit, I'm not confident that it would really make a difference right now. The reason why is because I believe that the old guard in the GOP does not want Black involvement. They do not want Black votes. I'm not saying that everybody in the GOP has this attitude. I would think that your rank and file Republican, if you were to ask them, would you like to see more Black people come to the conservative side? They're going to say yes. But to me, the people with power on the right in the Republican Party, they do not want Black involvement, which is why they won't invest resources, money, and time into Black communities. They won't lift up Black candidates, minorities who actually want to run as conservatives. They won't do it. Now, I think that that's something that will change. I don't know how long it will take, but I wonder if that were to happen, like, say, tomorrow, if Black people just said, you know, we're not going to just vote for Democrats tomorrow, would it make any difference? I'm not confident that it would, because the Republican Party would still not want to compete for the votes.
Yeah.
Well, eventually they're gonna have to. I mean, you look here in Texas, you start to see that mentality shift a bit, because they can't help but to compete. You know, we have Austin, Dallas, Houston, San Antonio. Most of the people moving into Texas are moving into those metro areas, largely minorities, or, you know, kind of working class, or either at that kind of lower end of the socioeconomic spectrum. So they have to compete for those votes. They're not doing a good job of it, and they're not really doing it in earnest. But in terms of kind of just electability going forward, they have to realize that these urban areas are growing, and that's where people are choosing to move to, these denser urban areas by and large. And I hear, you know, in Houston, fourth largest city, we have a lot of Republican candidates for city council. It's a nonpartisan election, but I mean, it's pretty blatant. They campaign for Black votes. You can see it. They show up to communities. These are people who come from the communities, white guys, Black guys, whatever the case is, but they don't have a problem going in there and actually doing the work. When it comes to our partisan elections, whether you're running for state rep or anything above that, you really don't see that engagement. It's just kind of non-existent. But I think as we continue to see these shifts, they're going to have to reconcile that and start to do it, or else they're just not going to be viable. At least not in Texas.
And with Jeff, with Jeff saying with the whole old guard thing, I think part of it is that there are not just old guard, but also the people who are Black old guard. And I think it really comes down, I've seen it. And I've had to pray about this. I mean, God's working on me, but the whole scarcity mentality versus the abundance mentality. We think that there's so rare, like, you know, being a Black Republican is so rare, right? And so we get caught up in this frenzy of like, oh yeah, we're one of the rare ones. And then when someone else comes in, then it's almost like, oh, okay, you're in my territory. And there are people who are going to have self-awareness.
These are my white people.
Right. It's like there are people who have self-awareness. It's like, oh, okay, I shouldn't do that. And if I really want to welcome more people in, then I have to step back and let people, you know, have the spotlight when they need it as well. But there are people who are not going to have that self-awareness, or who don't want to. And so they are the ones who are, like you're saying, the old guard, who won't let other people, particularly that other Black women or other Black men or whatever, or the gay Black man, whatever you are as that, you know, very special person, to come up alongside them as well. And that's the big problem I think we see, and why we continue to see these quote unquote token, right, in that sense of the Black starlet for the day in the Republican Party, but you don't see more and more who come up just like them, because there's this whole structure that keeps people from like going up with them. So I think that's part of, we have to change that mentality, that scarcity mentality, and change to an abundance mentality, and know that we all, just because we're Black doesn't mean we come from the same backgrounds, that we don't have something to offer that's different, like our perspectives are not the same, and really live that out within the movement. We
got chats, we got questions from the chat. Shout out to y'all Hotep. My Hoteps is deep in the building. Gang, we out here. Sonny, Jeff, and Felicia is the first Black conservatives I ever seen speaking up for Black people. I thought hell had frozen over. 50 Shades Saul G says the largest seem to be selling Trump and Republican Party and not actual conservative values.
That's true.
All right, let's get here.
Yeah, that's like the brother Charles was saying. You know, the move here, the Republicans are going to eventually have to start fighting for the Black vote, because without it, they'll be locked out of national power for, you know, decades maybe. If the Hispanic vote and the Asian vote and the Black vote all keep coming over to the left, keep going to the left, at some point, to put it bluntly, you're going to run out of white people. You know, and it's just gonna, you know, you're gonna have a problem getting enough votes. I mean, our side already doesn't win the popular vote. How many times are people gonna go in this country for the president being the person that didn't win the popular vote? I mean, people in this country are not going to keep going for that, regardless of what the Constitution says. You know, that's not healthy. You know, we can do it a couple times, but if it happens 2-3 more times, people are going to say, hold on, the party that doesn't have the most votes keeps winning. And then, people are going to say, and I'm a constitutional guy. It doesn't bother me that I just think it's not good for the country if we keep, our side keeps winning with less votes. It doesn't look, it doesn't look good for our side. It's like we're not winning the argument. We're just winning like the strategery, if you want to call it.
I mean, Neville, it's not a long time successful strategy. I mean, in 2012, when I worked on Romney's campaign, we saw for the first time a significant decline in white men. That's a huge base for the Republican Party. 2018 midterm, Republican Party essentially ceded the suburbs, which was always a stronghold for the party, to Democrats. There is no indication that we're going to be able to change that in the foreseeable future. And when you look at demography, because of demographic changes, states are shifting. So the current landscape that existed 4 years ago, that's not going to be the case in 2024. And so some of the states that we as a party have relied on to give us that electoral advantage, those seats are going to lose congressional seats to some more diverse seats purely because of migration and demographics and population booms. And so the reality is, if the Republican Party does not readjust itself, statistically, we are going to find ourselves in a really, really tight spot. That's something that I've been talking about, focusing on for a long, long time. And there are some people in the Republican Party, at the RNC, at least they were, who really cared about these issues. How do we change this dynamic? My concern, however, is that a lot of those people have sort of been pushed away because they're not walking in line with what people think should represent the Republican Party of today. But the reality is the Republican Party of today is not representative of what the Republican Party should be in the future, purely based on demographics, purely based on the numbers. And the data just doesn't lie. It doesn't lie. And so maybe we'll win again in November. Maybe we'll get another 4 years. But in 2024, when you have 50.1, 50.2% of a voting population that's engaged, that's minority, that's diverse, and they look at our party and they say, racist, there's no way in hell I'm voting for them. I'm voting for the other guys. What does that mean for us? I mean, these are really serious, complicated things that we have to really try to solve and figure out. And I don't think that some individuals who have the platforms, if you will, that may be larger than some of us on here, are really doing a good job or giving credence, if you will, to trying to put pressure on individuals in the party apparatus, to Jeff's point of saying, guys, we got to start making some changes here. That was the whole point of the Growth and Opportunity Project in 2012. I helped write the damn thing. The whole self-assessment was, we are really walking into a corner. And if we don't turn around, there will be no path. That was the whole point. And it's almost like we ripped the whole thing up, threw it in the trash, and lit it on fire. And now we're saying, oh, crap, well, what's happening? We lost a suburb. How can this happen? Multiple Republican congressmen are retiring all across the country. I mean, you look at the data, you look at these districts, you look at where things are going for our party, and it doesn't look good. And I think it's up to people like us to try to solve these things. And a part of it, to someone's point, why aren't they supporting more African-American candidates? I remember when I first started in Republican politics, I used to only work for Black Republican candidates. Now I've worked for a lot of white ones. I can tell you there's a huge disparity in how they support white candidates versus African-American candidates. Some of the stupidest candidates that I've ever worked for. Tons of financial support. And you have someone like Angela who knows the people in the community, who has an impeccable story. Why isn't she getting tons of money? Why aren't they parading her all around and saying, this is the example of what we want to become? We want more people like that. And the fact that the party isn't doing that, that should concern the hell out of all of us.
Yep.
We got questions here from the chat. I got 4 good ones here. It says, if a cop pull up on Black conservative and shot him, what do you think white conservatives will say? What if they shot Terrence Williams?
Oh, come on.
You guys sound
well, he does get all those
sound bites are
threats.
going to happen here, guys.
don't know.
They would have said he shouldn't have resisted.
He shouldn't have been in the neighborhood.
I don't know.
Exactly.
I don't know. I think they like Terrence. I think the whole conservative might mourn. They take out Terrence.
Nah.
Well, I mean, that's the thing is that I think, like Neville was saying, is that we look at, I mean, I'm pregnant. I'm going to have a well, I'll just tell you guys, like there's nobody else. I'm having a son. And so this definitely,
Congratulations.
thank you.
Nice.
Breaking news, breaking news.
Yeah, right. So I think of him, he's gonna be a black man. He's half whatever, but he's gonna be a black man. And me think I know, right? Crazy. Me thinking about me being a mother and being in the shoes of Arbery's mom. And more I get into that, the more I'm like, oh my gosh, like that could have been my son, my future son. That could have been me. That could have been somebody else. Because no one's gonna look at me and say, oh yeah, that's a black conservative. Like,
yeah, they don't care.
So we're good.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't matter. We're all the same when someone's looking at us. So I think that's
point.
part of it. We have to remember that.
Right.
We got another question. It said, are y'all going to use your power as political leverage for reparations for foundational Black Americans?
I mean, with me, I don't necessarily want to check, but I am for reparations, maybe in the form of land, maybe in the form of business grants, something like that. I don't necessarily want to check, but reparations would be nice.
I think
answer.
Teresa has a good point. We got to define what reparations mean. And I think a lot of people just immediately think, oh, we're going to give out checks to Black people, and white people just say absolutely not. That's not what we mean. I think reparations could look in the form of creating better educational opportunities. So perhaps if you're African American, the first 2 years of a community college are absolutely free. We need to figure out better ways to give access to capital. Hotep, you're always talking about this, business entrepreneurship. We need to make that a more equitable and level playing field. I mean, there are a whole host of different ways through policy that you can talk about reparations outside of just giving people checks. I don't think that's what a majority of Black people are saying they want. I think most Black people are saying we want the same damn opportunities, we want the same damn resources as white people. We want equity. If there isn't equity, the system isn't fair. That's a reparation.
Yeah, and I would just add to that. I mean, if we are going to push for some type of reparations, we are going to have a huge battle against conservative media, because it's conservative media really that's responsible for how a lot of white conservatives view Black people in general. But on the issue of reparations, they have done a very good job of fear mongering, saying if there's reparations, that means all these white people are going to have to sign over checks to Black people. It's going to bankrupt everybody. They have totally muddied the waters on the issue. So I think it's something that we can do. We just have to make sure that our messaging is tight and that we know exactly what we mean when we say reparations. This is exactly what it will look like. It doesn't mean you're gonna have to write a check. It's not coming from you, it's coming from the federal government, which allowed for the enslavement and Jim Crow of what was done to our ancestors.
Unfortunately, my ancestors are Jamaican, so I wouldn't qualify anyways.
Yeah, I mean, Nigerian.
Under Hotep Jesus reparations plan, you actually do qualify, my brother. You actually do qualify.
I'm half Jamaican. Will I qualify?
What?
Would I qualify? Because some people have told me I don't qualify because I'm half Jamaican, I guess.
Nah, you qualify under my reparations plan.
I'm Black American though.
My reparations plan go all the way back to Christopher Columbus. White people gotta pay.
Well, you know, like I was saying, you know, I think we got to put together a nice agenda. You know, remember how Tavis Smiley used to have the State of the Black Union just a long time ago? I don't know, he stopped it. I think we need to do the same thing on the conservative end, you know, on our side. You know, have these roundtable discussions, serious discussions about the issues in our community. We don't need anybody coming and see, we don't need anybody coming in and just down. You know, a lot of times what Black conservatives we do, we come in the community, we just down talk each other. We act like there's no successful Black people. We act like everybody in the Black community wants a handout. And we just think, you know, everybody Black is fatherless, and everybody, you know, we don't highlight Black excellence enough. You know, what about the Black business owners?
That's a good point.
Yeah, what about the Black business owners? You know, I got a business. My brother has barbershops. Like, what about Black business owners? What about the people who are doing good? You know, not every Black person is a criminal. You know, I read some of these guys' posts, man, and I'm like, yo, man, what are y'all talking about? Like, you know, you would actually think a Klan member wrote that post. If you didn't know, like the brother said, if you didn't see that his profile picture was Black, You would have thought that was a Klansman who wrote that post. You would have. And the thing is, like, what are we gonna do about the blacks who do want home ownership? You know, a lot of people say, well, the conservative party, we're about, you know, the Republicans, we're about our personal accountability. Okay, so I take personal accountability. Now what? You know, now what? What about, you know, grants and loans and things like that, and, you know, housing, like the brother said. How can we get our hands in the resources? Like I'm saying, like abortion is, you know, having these conversations are good, but now let's talk about the money. Let's talk about the resources. Let's talk about how wealth is accumulated. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about policy that is going to help us to create jobs and to create businesses. Let's talk about the money. You know, that's what I want. Let's talk about the money. See, they don't want to talk about the money. They just want to keep talking about, oh man, black on black crime. No, man, I ain't killed nobody. So let's talk about what I want to talk about.
Anybody else got anything to say on the topic of reparations?
So, I mean, in the spirit of Ahmaud, and I think to what Jonathan's point, he sort of alluded to this. I think Neville sort of alluded to this as well, Antonia as well. I mean, once we're done with this conversation, you know, I think a lot of times we have these conversations and we do gain a lot out of them, and a lot of people are informed. But what's the next step, right? Well, what's that next follow-up? And so does that mean we get together, we put together a group, we start working on policy prescriptions for those of us who are writers and researchers? For those of us who have organizations, are you outreaching through that avenue and we're sort of connecting these things together? And then are we in turn going to Congress and saying, look, these are some things we've put together. We want to get some sponsors on a subcommittee to hopefully bring a legislation to the floor. I mean, those are some very concrete next step things that I don't think happen often enough. When we as a community, not just Black conservatives, but when we as a community just gather together, we don't have follow-up. And I just want to make sure once this is over, we have some follow-up on some of these things, because I think these are very critical issues. And I think a lot of people have brought up some amazing ideas that really could make a difference in a lot of Black people's lives.
I got another question here. We got Zakia Vasquez, appreciate you. She said, Republicans will tell you that Black, Hispanics, and Asians vote them besides them being generally conservative because we all want free stuff. Why won't they look inward? Mark Curfew, thank you. He says, is it possible for Black liberals and Black conservatives can unite when it comes to issues facing the Black community? Well, that's pretty much what we see here, you know, with the death of Ahmaud Arbery. Thank you, Drew Sample. What's good, Hotep, Jesus, and Jeff? Appreciate you. Happy Friday.
What's up, Drew?
Thank you, bro. Street Politics with Talisha. She says, Taik, coming for all y'all about his reparations. The Life and Times of Unconventional, appreciate you. Said, how can we get a bigger presence in media that showcase conservatives' Black values in a positive manner? Films, TV shows, news, etc. You can't, so you might as well just throw that out the window. Drew Sample, shout out to Sure Michael. I enjoy the McLaughlin group. Yeah, you're not gonna get that. The media's to make people dumb. They're not gonna give you something good in the media. You look for something good in the media, you might as well just turn that bitch the fuck off. So we got another question here which says, what can white conservatives do besides do to stand beside you and support? Anybody want to tackle that?
Be willing to listen.
Right.
Be willing to listen.
Be willing to listen. Be empathetic. Understand the other side instead of just stating your point and you know you're not willing to listen. You have to be willing to listen to the other side. Like you said, you want people to accept your views. Try to understand where they're coming from so you can get a better point of view. Are you saying there's a lack of free thinking amongst the free thinkers? Is that what you're trying to say? Yes, I am.
Yeah. Well,
even I can't free think anymore. I'm getting called names. I'm getting said to me that I'm spewing anti-white hate, and then I'm playing the victim. So
yeah, but to piggyback off that, Cherie, so I mean that response to you, that's cognitive dissonance. It's because that's what they've been told by the media. So to answer the question that was originally asked, what can white conservatives do to help? One, I would say, understand that it's not just the progressive media that lies to you. It's not just the Democrats that lie to you. the Republican establishment lies to you too, especially about the Black community. So I would say everything that you've been taught, start questioning it and start seeking out knowledge of maybe the other side. Don't be afraid if you think that it sounds too liberal, because it has nothing to do with left wing or right wing in most cases. So I would say that, and I would also say to call things out when you see bad behavior on our side, call it out just like you would on the left. And I will say, and I'll go positive here. I will say that the overwhelming majority of white conservatives that I've interacted with about the Ahmaud Arbery case, the people who've commented on my article, overwhelmingly in support of Ahmaud Arbery and condemning what the McMichaels did.
Right.
That would not have been true 5-10 years ago. That would not have been true then. So there has been progress made, and I think it's easy for us, and I fall into this all the time, but it's easy for us to fall into like the annoying elements on our side. But I think that progress is being made. But I think as far as, you know, white conservatives who want to help, just keep talking about it. You know, don't be afraid to call it out on our side. You're going to get some backlash. I will tell you from experience, you're going to get a lot of backlash. So what? Keep going. Don't be Sesame Street.
Somebody asked, can Republicans win New York? Ever?
No.
No, next question.
No, next question. Exactly.
Okay.
Somebody said, Steph Colonel, thank you, said, do y'all think that McMichaels will get convicted?
Boy, we in Georgia, so I'm in Georgia. Boy, that's a great question. He's in South Georgia, so man, I mean, they're still kind of, you know, it's still not as enlightened as we up here in Atlanta. So, but I'm gonna say yes. I'm gonna say yes.
Yeah, let me give you a little experience with me. So during the Walter Scott incident, I mean, I was a part of rolling with Black Lives Matter, and that was before it, you know, just kind of really went off base. I mean, we were strictly at that time dealing with police community relations. As you know, Officer Slager, he got his first trial was a mistrial. There was one white juror who held everybody up, and he said, "Listen, I cannot convict this officer," and he just threw the whole thing in a mistrial. Solicitor had to go back again and take him in federal court to get a conviction. The only reason I believe that Officer Slager got all that time, he got 20 years, of course. The only reason I believe he got that time is because of our diligence and hitting the streets, protesting. I mean, we were really, really, really vocal about what happened. I mean, he was running and got shot 8 times in the back. I mean, how in the world can you look at that? It's almost like with the brother, how can you look at that video and say Officer Slager is not guilty? All planted the taser by his feet with his lifeless body. So, you know, it all depends on what the people in Brunswick, Georgia do. How much are they willing to invest as far as, you know, sacrificing their time and their lives? What are they willing to put on the line to see justice? Right now, it's a wild card. If they get out there and they let it be, and you know what? And I'm gonna tell you like this: all depends on the family too. That plays a lot. Because if the family start, oh man, we forgive these guys and all that, then they might as well.
Oh no, not that again.
No.
We had a question earlier. We had a question earlier. Somebody said, what if these white dudes that kill Ahmaud Arbery get off? What then? What you gonna do then? White man and whooped your ass, walked up in the court, walked out with a vacation. What are you gonna do then? What'd you do the last time?
I was gonna say it happens. How many times has it happened? That's the thing. It's sad how many times has it happened. Yeah. That's the sad part about it. But I mean, that's okay. So I kind of did an experiment on my Instagram, and obviously this is for me authentic on both sides. And I was just as, not say just as upset, but I was upset about the lack of justice that happened with, you know, Shelley Luther, that happened in Dallas, because I felt like that was injustice. She's a white woman, okay, in Dallas. And then I was also upset about what happened here. And I think people who are just coming, like especially white conservators or anybody who's just listening right now, I don't want people to think that, oh, well, yeah, that's the only issue that we talk about because we're Black. That's the consistency we're trying to talk about here, is that if you are gonna have, you are gonna be upset about the injustice that you see for someone and they look a certain way, then you should also be just as upset about the injustice that is happening with somebody of a different color. And I think this has been a great week to see that the community there, because unfortunately there are people I have seen on those comments who are like, oh my goodness, Shelly, that's horrible what happened to her. This is an injustice, who would then turn around in the other, post that I made about Arbery and then say, well, we need to look at the facts first.
You're race baiting.
Right.
Yeah, that's what Sonny Johnson has a phrase for that. It's called conservatism equally applied. Apply conservatism equally, not just to one group of people, apply it to everybody. If the government is doing something that it shouldn't be doing, which in Arbery's case, trying to cover it up and make sure nothing happened to the people that committed the crime until the video came out, then have that same energy that you would have with Shelley Luther. Have that same energy for us as you do with her.
And we even have an apples to apples comparison, because this same week it came out. So you have Shelley Luther in Dallas, and then you have 2 Hispanic women in Laredo who are arrested for a makeshift, salon out of their house. And the responses were completely different. And I think a large part of it was the media blew up the Shelley Kennedy story. And so a lot of the elected officials and everybody who rallied around her knew about it because of that. But on that same token, I mean, the governor, the attorney general wrote letters, encouraged them to release her. The Supreme Court acted, but these 2 women in Laredo did not get nearly as much attention as Shelley Luther did. And so, I mean, you can see it right there, just in 1 week, 3 cases that are exactly the same, and one got pretty much national attention, and the other was almost ignored.
Shout out to Uber guy. He says, "Hey, Hoteps, what up?" He said, "Y'all down to do a citizen arrest tomorrow?" I didn't think so. He said, "I didn't think so. We would get smoked or life in jail." Right. Hold that down. Justice for Ahmaud. Word. Appreciate you, homie. Drew Sample, what up, homie? He said, "I think it's time for people to group together and buy land. Real estate market is about to have a correction. Now is a good time to pool money and buy blocks, neighborhoods." Yeah, it's about to be a buyer's market. I think everybody should collect their cash and get ready. It's going to be some cheap houses to sell. You're going to have to buy your cousin a house because they're going to be on the poverty line.
All right, and you notice, nobody told the protesters in Michigan, wait until you get your check. Just cool out. Don't protest yet. Wait till you get your check. I mean, they weren't waiting there, so you want us to wait for justice, but then you don't want to wait for your check. Why don't you wait for your stimulus check to hit? Wait till it's over. Wait till the curve flat. For COVID-19. Why don't you wait? Wait to go to the beach. Wait to get your hair cut. They didn't want to wait then, but then now, it's like wait on all this stuff to play out. Like I said, the double standard, the triple standard is very, very real. But I really appreciate, what we're doing tonight. And I think as we become solution oriented and we begin crafting an agenda and putting that agenda in front of the people, and they see it works, and they see that we're not willing to compromise, they see that, we do have the best interest in the community at heart, I think we will draw a lot of people in, especially with a different approach, one that's not more so just, bashing Black people and, trying to, just it's different approaches, and I think they'll warm up to us. And because right now, like I said, they call all of us sellouts and coons and all of that other stuff. And even me, sometimes I repost and I just cringe. I'm like, oh, you said that? Oh my God! Like, woo, oh, yeah, woo, man, oh man. I mean, it's. I'm pretty sure all of us have that same experience, and you're like, wow. Then you look in the comment section, and I mean, they just say, you have people say some of the most racist things, and
exactly.
we don't even put them in check.
The freak.
Yeah,
Oh no, I put him in check. I don't know about you, but
Oh yeah, no, I know you do. But I'm just
Yeah, I
saying,
see
like,
Sharice out there put him in check.
yeah, Sharice, man, she all over the. You know, they don't mess with her.
I got a question, a real good question from the chat. It said, do you guys really think the small portion of conscious Black conservatives can change anything in the Republican Party of old white men? Uh-oh.
mm.
I'm going to keep my mouth shut on that one.
Mhm.
I'll answer that.
I mean, you know what?
Go ahead. I'll answer after you.
I think Roger Scruton, I think maybe Roger Scruton, the conservative philosopher, wrote that nothing lasts forever. And so to answer that question, those old white men won't be around forever. At some point, their time will come to an end. And so that means that we need to be in the proper positions and to be prepared to take that mantle of leadership to move forward. And so, yeah, I think it's possible. I don't think that's necessarily going to be tomorrow. No one ever wants to give away their power. Why would they? I think if we had power, we wouldn't want to give it away either. So I understand that, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be prepared. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't be now taking the proper steps to guide our own future so that we're not so dependent upon these other people.
Yeah.
Right. And if you look, I mean, if you really look at it, look at how the Democratic Party has just flipped. I mean, when Obama, I mean, we weren't talking about open borders in 2008. You know, just if you just kind of look at how the progressives have gotten the Democratic Party and started shaping and look how AOC and the squad has just been challenging a lot of the moderate Democrats. I mean, they got in and they just started hammering away and hammering away and hammering away, and they're a voice to be reckoned with. And the young people are starting to, you know, gravitate towards them, and they're forcing the older Democratic Party to address their ideals and to say, you know what, we can't ignore them for too long. So yes, I totally think that we can, as conservatives, restructure and bring more life to the Republican Party and diversity, fresh ideas. I think that I know that.
Yeah, and I'll just point out, just to kind of echo what Shermichael was saying, you know, this isn't going to happen tomorrow. I mean, like I said before, the GOP right now doesn't really want Black votes, but they can't do this forever. New blood is going to come in. These people aren't going to live forever. They're not going to be part of the GOP forever. There is a shift happening, and it's a gradual shift. It's not quick. But I mean, you know, and we could say whatever we want to about Trump. I don't want to get too much into Trump, but Trump is the first Republican presidential candidate in recent memory that's actually put a concerted effort into reaching out to the Black community. The previous candidates didn't really try. But it's going to take more than that. It's going to have to be a shift in the GOP. It's not just at the presidential level. It has to happen at the local and state level. So what's the word? The apparatus that's in there right now, what I call the legacy of the Lily White movement that doesn't want Black people in it, they're going to be pushed out, and new people are going to be more open to it. That's why I'm saying that, like, the whole shift with the attitudes toward the Arbery case. 10 years ago, it wouldn't have been that case. Right now, a lot of people are condemning it, the younger ones, and they're going to come up, and I don't think they're going to have the exact same attitudes as their predecessors.
Yeah.
All right, guys, I'm tired. So
we can't hear you, Hotel. We cannot hear you.
Wonderful. What up? I'm back. Yo, thank you for everybody tuning in. I think we covered a lot. Y'all want to add some closing statements?
One thing, all I have to say is, we said what we said, I said what I said, and that's on period.
Oh my God.
All right.
All right. Not to say anything, it's get involved, especially on the local level, because that's where it matters the most. Forget about federal level. State's somewhat important, but the local level is where you can make the biggest change. So if you're worried about how Republicans look on the local level and worried about making relationships, get out there and talk to your city councils and do some good work in your city.
That's right.
Right. I would like to see and last but not least, I'd like to see more ideas coming from the Republican Party, like legalization of marijuana. and things like that. I mean, that's a part of criminal justice reform. I mean, if you really think about it, look how many people are, they're locking people up for marijuana. Marijuana is that's not a dangerous drug. Alcohol is more dangerous than marijuana. And I know a lot of the old guard of the people will disagree with me, but I mean, certain things like that. I mean, I think that these are some of the policies that will really help and that'll cut down on mass incarceration and all that. This is my opinion. That's something I would like to see.
I mean,
Antonia,
I was gonna say we made good. I mean, we've just being when I changed from 2012 to now. It was the criminal justice of Rand Paul. I just remember Rand Paul and gravitating towards him and going to the party because he was talking about criminal justice reform. And I just never saw somebody who actually cared about that. My dad went to prison for 20 years on mandatory minimum. So I understood that. And so that's why I gravitated towards that. And so that is a conservative issue. And that's the whole consistency thing is if we are consistent on our principles, then there are a lot of people who are going to gravitate towards that. It's when we decide to go from one thing or the other and decide this is our principle here and not our principle here, like the criminal justice reform thing that really turns people off. So it's been really great. I mean, even President Trump has been really great on that issue. And I would like to see more things like that. I think that's where I see progress and we can get more people on our side if we can continue to be consistent with our principles.
Yeah, white people don't give a fuck about what black people give a fuck about. You know what I'm saying? This it just is what it is. You know what I'm saying? Like, if we look at, men lie, women lie, numbers don't, right? And we look at the numbers on the chat. White people don't really give a fuck about this shit. They did, they'd be in here. They'd be in here talking it out, listening to us, trying to figure out what's going on. Hotep would die. Hotep would die. Hotep or die. If you want to save the world, we got to make it a Hotep world. HotepNation.com. And that's all I got to say. Hotep's been told you every Thursday right here. Make sure y'all subscribe. Anybody else got something to say?
Not really. Good night.
We said what we said.
Yeah,
we said what we said.
Exactly.
Let's keep doing this. Let's keep having more conversations like this. That's what I want.
More conversations, more solutions. That's what we need.
Somebody said, can we do this again with a couple of left-leaning liberals? If you could find a left-leaning liberal
that's logical,
who could sit in this room next to Hotep Jesus, please make it happen. I tried and I tried and I tried. And as soon as they hear my name, they go running.
I'll find somebody.
I don't know why.
I could do that easy. Yeah, I could find
make it happen. Tell them, get some liberal friends up here. Somebody that got some stain though. Hopefully a blue check or something. You ain't never gonna find no blue check that's gonna come in here. If they got some stain, I ain't talking about your average liberal who ain't never opened up a Twitter account. I'm talking about these people out here that really be talking that talk. Like, let's make this hot. You know what I mean? Let's let AOC or somebody below her caliber or something. Let's get somebody in here for real. Mark Lamar Hill. Somebody.
I want Charlamagne in here. That's what I want.
Let's get some. But again, they don't care about us, so that's not gonna happen. So we're just gonna take that right off. But I just want y'all to know that the black community is only gonna be as strong as the individual, and that goes for any community. You're only as strong as the individual. So until we build a culture that builds strong individuals, we ain't never gonna be free. And one more thing, white people are slaves too. So because white people are slaves and we white people slaves, we slaves 2 times. So until we free white people, we ain't never gonna be free. That's another story for another day. That might go over people's heads. I'm just giving my thoughts. I've been kind of quiet tonight. So I'm just
saying Hotep things. That's
Hotep.
I'm just giving you the Hotep perspective of it all. I just want to say thank you to everybody who showed up today. The black conservatives on my screen. I'm not familiar with some of y'all. I want to get familiar. Thank you for coming out and speaking out and not being on the other side of this thing. Thank you to Danielle Iola. She said, power to the people. Tamara, thank you. Kristen, thank you. GOP is full of rhinos. Take our party back. Yeah, you know, we could try to take the party back. It's not going to happen. You know, it's Hotep or die. You know, that's what it come down to. It's Hotep or die. If we ain't Hotep, we ain't never going to be free.
Well,
You know, and that's evidenced by, you know, like when you say things like Marcus Garvey, you know, and what Maj Toure doing. No, Maj is definitely, you know, of the Hotep persuasion. Knowledge of self is Hotep. These black conservatives out here don't got no knowledge of self. That's one thing Maj said earlier that just stuck with me. They ain't got no knowledge of self. So get you some knowledge of self. If you a Nordic white, go learn your Nordic shit. Go learn about when you was Vikings. You know what I mean? Be proud of your shit. But if you black and you a black conservative, it's okay to love black shit.
Say it louder. It's okay to be black. It's okay to be pro-black.
It's okay to be pro-black. You know what I mean?
Thank
Unless
you.
you try and get that bag. If you try and get that bag, don't listen to me. Go get your bag. Go do your thing. You know, it's grifting season.
But you can get the bag and still be pro-black.
Yes, you can.
Certainly can.
Depending on your
Certainly
audience,
can.
I would say, depending on your audience.
I mean, how pro-black are we getting?
The bag will be a little lighter. Let's put it that way.
What's up?
The bag will be a little
You get
lighter.
the
It
bag?
won't be as heavy.
You
It
get
won't
the
be as
bag,
heavy.
Hotep? Do you get the bag, Hotep?
Would I get the bag?
Do you get the bag?
Absolutely, I get the bag.
Hey,
Fuck
so there
all
you
y'all.
go.
Fox News
That's
call
your-
me right now. I'm out.
That's your answer.
You know what I'm saying?
Pro-black can we can be Hotep pro-black.
You heard what I just said. I said white people's a slave. So you think if they pass me the bag, I'm gonna turn it down? Hell yeah, I'm taking that shit. Fuck all of y'all. We all doomed. Y'all ain't see what they did with the quarantine? They locked us all on lockdown. You know what I mean? It's every man for himself right now. I'm telling you right now, it's every man for himself. Apocalypse season is upon us. If you love black people, just be black. You know, like Antonio Okafor. What she said, my son gonna be black.
Period.
Right? That's all you got to do. You just gotta love your blackness, you know, and everything else will sort itself out. This ain't nothing that, you know, needs some big old strategy. And I also think we need to shut up about it. Since I'm a little tipsy and talking.
Oh, here we go. Okay, that's all right.
Oh Lord.
I'm gonna end this meeting right now.
I think people that are pro-black are too pro-black. They always, you know, I'm pro-black. They wake up in the morning, they tweet it out. What's up, my black people? You know,
I know
it's
people like
cute.
that, actually.
I mean, we all know people like this. And I think what it is they're trying to charge themselves up. They're trying to convince themselves. They're doing it for themselves. And they're doing it for the clout. They grifting too, you know?
Right.
They
And
grifting just
well, you
to
know,
they pander to another
you know,
audience.
Right. So, you know, I think what it is, right, especially, you know, through my evolution, I started off, man, in the RBG movement. I started South Carolina RBG
Right.
at a time when, you know, we was, you know, man, RBGing it out, man. Lone Star RBG, you had Memphis, you know, you had all the chapters of RBG started rolling. I was right there, you know, standing with Malik Zulu Shabazz when we was, you know, going and swarming, you know, communities and screaming and cutting the fool. I was there. You know what I'm saying? And I think a lot of it was just a lot of rhetoric. You know, the rhetoric, it was no results.
Right.
No results, but a lot of rhetoric. Like you had
Right.
and then you got Umar Johnson and, you know, Brother Polite and all of these brothers. They're not really getting no results, but it's just a lot of rhetoric. And it was whoever can scream the loudest and whoever can have the most anti-white rhetoric was the one who was looked at as being the king of the castle. However, when you started getting down to results and who was bringing resources in the community, you don't have anybody. I mean, so I think we got to transmogrify to looking at how we get people. We don't got to scream it. We don't got to scream, you know, black power. You can just go in and help empower Klein in Chicago, he got a wonderful school. He's talking about black on black crime. Dr. Marcus Klein, he got a school, and I think he opening one up in Florida too. You know, you got a lot of African liberation schools. You know, you got Brother Baba Amin with a Uru Academy. You know, these guys, they're not screaming, oh man, black all day. They're just getting in the community, providing resources, helping to educate the people, and you don't have to scream and yell. And I think we get so caught up in that yelling and the rhetoric, and we don't get no results.
In my book called The Unbreakable Rules of Masculinity, there's this old Chinese phrase. It goes, "Talk, don't cook rice."
Good phrase. I like
y'all have a wonderful night. Thank you for coming through. Make sure y'all subscribe before y'all leave. This was another Hotep Black Conservative production. I appreciate y'all, man. Mad love.
God bless y'all, man. Good night.
Y'all having a good night.